This week, we're talking MacBook Pros, but not the M1 Apple Silicon version that everyone else is talking about, rather the one that's running this channel, the 2019 15-inch model. Hello and welcome back to David Talking Tech and Audio. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. And if you haven't, it'd be really helpful if you did. And maybe drop me a like if you're enjoying these videos too, as it honestly does help the channel out. So this would be the point of the video where I normally hold up what we're talking about, headphones, microphones, whatever it may be, to show you what this video is going to be about. Sadly, I can't do that with this video, as the MacBook that I own is currently recording the audio for this video in Adobe Audition. There'll be plenty of B-roll showing you the MacBook that I own, and everything I use and run on it will be included in this video as well. But I thought it was time that we just revisit the MacBook of only a couple of years ago, 2019, not all that long ago. This MacBook is often slandered because of its features that it had, the butterfly keyboard, the touch bar, but I thought it was important that I should make this video for those of you like me that can't necessarily afford to go out and buy the brand new, almost £4,000 if it's fully loaded up MacBook Pro. I thought I'd let you know that, these 2019 models, they're not bad, and you can pick them up for reasonable money as well now. So let's take a look how I use my Mac. I'm a creative user most days. All of the videos you see on this channel are edited in Premiere Pro, and that's where I've noticed the biggest struggle, exporting and rendering these videos. A 10-minute video in 4K has taken about 30 to 35 minutes to export, which is a long time because almost inevitably you watch the final export back and there's one thing you've missed and you have to do the whole thing again. So that export time is where I've noticed that this MacBook is struggling a little bit. Very large Photoshop documents. When I'm in my graphic design business, I've again seen that it's struggling with just a little bit these days. The thumbnails, clearly for these videos in Photoshop, it's a breeze. In design, it doesn't struggle with. And Adobe Audition, even with plugins on a multi-track session, it's been a joy to use. So really, the only drawback I've seen, creatively at least, on this MacBook is when I'm video editing in Premiere Pro, and particularly in rendering. On the timeline, it's virtually stutter-free. Maybe occasionally when I put some effects in, then I notice it stutters for a little bit. But I'm looking at it full time. I'm not rendering it down to half time. So it's actually working very well for me. But it's just on that export time that I think I need to take a little bit of a look. And hopefully at some point this year, I will be upgrading to M1 Apple Silicon, or maybe even M2 by that point, Apple Silicon Mac. And I'm not sure yet whether to go for a MacBook Pro or an iMac if they bring out the newer iMac. I love desktops. Let me know which do you think I should go for. I'm tempted with the 16-inch possibly, or the larger iMac if that comes out this year. But back to this Mac, it honestly is performing ever so well. Other apps that I use regularly are Ulysses, which I use for writing my blog, and that goes out to Medium. If you fancy reading my blog, you'll find links for that in the details. And I use Dropbox and all the other kind of general apps that most of us, I guess, would use day to day. So on the whole, this Mac, after 2 years of use, is actually holding its own really, really well, with the only caveat being video, which, let's face it, not everybody does. So let's take a little look at the details and the spec of this machine that I've got here, shall we? Forgive me, I'm going to have to read. I'm useless with numbers, as my exam results will pay testimony to, and I'm no better now. It's a 2019 2.6 gigahertz 6-core i7 Intel processor inside of my MacBook. It's got 16 gigs of RAM. The graphics card is a Radeon Pro 555X. How desperately exciting. It's got a 256 solid state drive inside it, and it's the model that's got 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB Type-C ports on it, so it's got 2 on either side. I paid £2,400 for it back in August, I think it was, of 2019, and looking on eBay, very much at this specified machine, you can pick them up now for around about £1,000, which means it's cost me about £700 a year to run, which actually isn't bad value if you look at it. And I could honestly say that if you're thinking of getting a MacBook Pro and you want a 15-inch MacBook, these really aren't a bad option. The only caveat I would add is if you're going to buy it and use it predominantly for video editing, maybe think again then. But other than that, if you're doing audio work, graphic design work, using Photoshop and general admin work, this machine will honestly suit you really well. And at £1,000, it's a steal. So let's look at the keyboard and monitor on this MacBook, shall we? We'll start with the monitor first, as that's the easier part. It's a Retina True Tone display, 2880 by 1800 resolution, and it's exactly what you'd expect from any Mac or MacBook display. It's great, it's color accurate, and I love it. You can see that I've got it hooked up to an HP monitor. It's an HP P24, I think, behind me. That's connected via an HDMI cable to a USB hub that I can't recommend highly enough by QGene. I'll leave some details of it in the notes below. It's a brilliant hub that offers you so much versatility. So I've got an HDMI cable running out of that hub to that HP monitor you can see behind me. And the only reason I've got that is just for the larger real estate. So when I'm editing these videos, I can see the timeline bigger. Or for instance, if I'm in InDesign or Photoshop, again, I've just got a bigger screen to work on. And that's the only reason that I have that monitor. It's okay, but when you've been used to Mac monitors, even that horrible 21-inch Mac that I've got, you just get spoiled, don't you? You really do get spoiled. So the HP monitor is great just for larger screen size and estate, but anything that's color accurate, I go back to the monitor that's on the MacBook. Now onto the keyboard. It is the Butterfly keyboard with the touch bar. First of all, on the Butterfly keyboard, I've never had a problem with it, to be honest with you. I know many people say that it sticks. I don't use the keyboard all the time because I'm on a desk a lot of the time. I do use a Magic keyboard, so it's kind of probably 70% Magic keyboard and 30% the keyboard that's on the Mac itself. I do a fair bit of typing. I'm not a touch typist, so I'm no great critique on keyboards, but considering it's so much and so widely maligned, it's actually not a bad keyboard, trust me. I don't think you're going to get it and hate it. I've not had any problems with it sticking at all, and it gets the job done. As for the touch bar, actually, I quite happen to like it. I know that makes me an odd one out, but it's not a bad feature to have. I've never been a big function key user. I don't know about you, but so having the function keys back, if I were to get another MacBook Pro, I don't know if that would make an awful lot of difference to me or not. The touch bar does everything I want of it. I use it for brightness occasionally, I use it for volume occasionally, and then whichever app I'm in, for instance in Ulysses, it's actually quite handy. It gives me some shortcuts, offers up suggestions of what it might need me to do. I quite like the touch bar. I'm not going to say I'm going to miss it greatly, but it's certainly not something I've been sitting there thinking, harumph, when's that touch bar going to go? It's okay, you know. So keyboard, monitor, you've got nothing to worry about. They're actually okay. So let's look at performance, shall we? And we'll start off with the battery life. The battery's not bad. Clearly nothing comparable to the new M1 Apple Silicon laptops, but it's not bad. Depending on what you're doing, it's going to last you maybe half a day. If I take this out, I always do take the charging brick with me. I think you'd be very foolhardy to risk a day without it. If you're just doing light tasks such as a little bit of browsing, spreadsheets, emailing, it will last you most of a working day. If you're doing anything creative on it, such as Audition, Photoshop, particularly Premiere Pro, clearly you're going to see the battery life drain then. And if I'm doing a Premiere Pro project, such as editing one of these videos, I probably only get about an hour and a half out, if I'm being brutally honest, which I know pales in comparison to the newer MacBooks, but I've not been the best for battery health. I've mentioned a couple of times in this video that I leave it plugged in most of the time as I sit at a desk using it, and I don't unplug it often enough so the battery isn't getting its full cycle. So I've probably not helped it along when I do have to take it out and work with a charging brick or on battery, but it's not bad. It's kind of what you'd expect of one of these generations of laptops. Performance, as I've mentioned, on most of the tasks, you're not going to struggle. Even on InDesign, big documents on InDesign, 80-page books with plenty of pieces going on inside it, plenty of imported images, Photoshop documents going inside it. Never been a problem. Multi-layer documents, not an issue. Adobe Audition, again, I can have big multi-track sessions with running lots of plugins on the tracks. Not an issue at all. It eats all of that up. So the only area it struggles, and that's probably because of the graphics card. If I could have got a better graphics card in the machine when I bought it, if I'd had the time to order it, that would have clearly improved it. But even on this one, which was the 555X, I think we said, wasn't it, the Radeon Pro graphics card, it does its job, and it really is only on video that it's struggling. So general performance, battery life, I don't think you've got anything to worry about at all. This 2019 MacBook is a good, solid machine still. The design is timeless. It's a unibody design. It looks and feels just like you'd want a Mac to look and feel. It's about £4, so it is transportable, but you're going to know you've got it with you. Mine has got the two Thunderbolt 3 USB Type-C ports on either side, and that's really useful. I think the 13-inch only had the two ports, which meant you had to charge everything from one side. But with that QGEM hub that I've got, it means I've actually only got one cable plugged into the Mac, miraculously enough. Everything else gets plugged into that hub. So I've only got one cable plugged in, but it has got the 4 ports on it. So if you are working away from your desk, it's got plenty of port function on it. Obviously, you're going to need some adapters probably to go with it. And this doesn't have the SD card slot on it, which my hub does have. So if you're using SD card slots, just bear that in mind as well. You might need initially to buy a few dongles just to get you through. But the design is great. It's timeless. It looks and feels just like you'd want a Mac to feel. Let's talk about the speakers and the camera. Well, the camera is woeful. It's a 720p and it's not good. So I upgraded and bought myself a Logitech C920, and that's been great. It got used heavily through the last 2 years, not only because of the pandemic, but I used to do a lot of interviews for one of the radio shows that I hosted, and I found the best way to get a good interview with a guest was actually facing them. So that's why I invested in a better camera. And this Logitech camera, again, I'll put a link to that in the description, has been a really good find. It's good wide angle, it gives good results, fairly good color, and I've been really happy with that. So the inbuilt camera on this really isn't good at 720p. You'll probably want to upgrade that almost as soon as you get the laptop. If you use any kind of video conferencing systems, you're going to want a better camera. But the 720p was never going to cut it. The speakers, when they came out, they said they were studio quality. The speakers and mic, well, studio quality. The mic is not studio quality. It's okay. When I'm on those conference calls, I sit here in this studio and do it. So I use one of my number of microphones I've got around me. The microphone will do the job though. Studio quality, possibly not, but it will do the job. As for the speakers, for a laptop, they're not bad. I don't use them an awful lot. You can probably see one of the studio monitors that I've got, but that's clearly overkill. I obviously am very keen about audio, and audio matters to these videos and to other projects that I work on. So I've got a fairly good audio system around me here. But if you want decent speakers, if you're just listening to your playlist on Spotify or putting on Apple Music or listening to podcasts, honestly, the speakers on here are good. They've got a reasonable amount of bass, they're reasonably loud, and if you're sitting at home or even in a coffee shop, if you wanted to use speakers in a coffee shop, they're not bad. They get by and they've got reasonable sound to them. So what have I learned about this Mac over the last couple of years? Would I buy it again? Firstly, yes. Would I recommend that you buy one if you're in the market for a used and affordable Mac? Absolutely yes. This 2019 model, and this is just before the revisions came out late in 2019, in November of 2019, they got rid of the butterfly keyboard, and there's a couple of other revisions to them. But in these MacBooks that were the earlier part of 2019, the one we've got here, the one you've been seeing the pictures of through this video, honestly, for everything except video work, I can honestly say I think you'd really get a good result out of this. For £1,000, which is the price of a MacBook Air, roughly speaking, you're getting so much more functionality with this. It's a great machine. I know those new Apple Silicon M1s in the MacBooks, certainly in the MacBook Pros, are phenomenal. I've not had the pleasure of using one day to day, but certainly everything I've heard and seen about them, they are great machines. But outside of the MacBook Air, they come at a cost. And maybe you want a MacBook Pro, maybe you can't afford, and you know, they're a lot of money, those new MacBook Pros, so maybe you can't afford the £3,500 for one. That's why I'm still waiting as well to make my decision whether I should go for a laptop or an iMac. But if you're looking to get into the market of a MacBook Pro now, these 2019 models that are going on eBay for around £1,000, I think you'll be mighty impressed, and it won't let you down. So I've been running this as a daily machine almost for 2 years. I've got another iMac in my office that I use when I'm there, which is a 2015 iMac 27-inch, fully spec'd up graphic-wise, built for my graphic design business. That's great, but this isn't far behind, and it's portable again, which is great. So they say this is a prosumer computer. It's hard to know what a pro is. I mean, I consider myself a pro, given the fact that I run a graphic design business off of this. So yeah, I think you could say that they're for the pro user. And at the value that you can find them for at the moment, they're a really good machine. I wish I'd got a better graphics card in it. So again, if you're looking around, see if you can get something other than the 555X graphics card that I've got in this one. And I wish, again, I'd got more internal storage. And that's something moving forward, I think I've certainly learned. Although I use a LaCie 2 Thunderbolt external RAID drive for all of my video projects are stored on there. All of my extensive music library for my years of radio all stored on there. So I use external storage an awful lot, but still, I think I've learned that getting a bigger internal storage is always a good idea. And if I were to buy another laptop, and if you were looking to buy a laptop, I'd suggest maybe looking at the 1 terabyte minimum would be a good idea. Certainly for me, it would just mean I could edit these videos actually on the Mac itself before dumping them off to a hard drive when I got back. So the extra storage would be useful, and I think it's always good to have a bit of headroom. I have been looking at the new MacBook Pros this year. As I say, I haven't decided whether to go for a laptop or a desktop. But if it were to be a laptop, I'd probably go for 2 terabytes, as my iMac that I mentioned at work is a terabyte, and that's doing okay after 5 or 6 years, but I just like that bit of headroom. So basically, if you're looking to buy one of these 2019 15-inch MacBook Pros, look maybe to upgrade the video graphics card if you can, and look to get more internal storage. But apart from that, great machines. Let me know, are you using a MacBook Pro? Is it one of these ones? Is it one of the 15-inch 2019 models that I'm running here? How's your keyboard? How are you finding a touch bar? It'd be lovely to hear from you. Make sure to get in touch. And thank you. I just want to say thank you. We've been running this channel now for around about 4 months or so. And I say we because you're very much involved with it. We've got around 100 odd subscribers now, which is brilliant. It means so much to me. Every subscription means so much to me for the work that I put in. It's lovely to know that you're enjoying it. And thank you for all of the subscriptions. And maybe if you could drop me a like, it really does. Believe me, it does help the channel grow. So I hope you enjoy the channel. And I just wanted to say thank you for being on this journey with me. I've got plenty of great ideas to come. So do get subscribed. I'll leave some notes down in the comments where you can find me on Medium and also my website, talkingtechandaudio.com. I'm going to be starting a newsletter sometime later in the year. So if you want to leave me your details so I can put them on a database, that'd be great. And at some point, another thing I'm going to be doing is starting a podcast to go along with this channel as well. So that's just a few of the plans that I've got down the line. If you've got a few spare moments, at the end of this video, I'm going to put a link to a video I did right at the end of last year about my first 3 months, as it was then, on YouTube, and what I found out and how I was finding it. So if you've got a few spare moments, I'd love if you could click on that and listen to me ramble on about my findings on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this video. Slightly different, I know, looking at the MacBook, but it's behind everything I do here on the channel, so I thought it might be of interest to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.